Hello everybody. There is only one more day until 2018 finds itself in the history books. It's a time of reflection for me. It's a time for me to say, what has this year meant to me? What have I accomplished in this year? What have my difficulties been? And what can I learn from the experience? I'm going to share with you 10 of my biggest lessons that I've learned in the year 2018. One of them that I learned, and they're in no particular order, one of them that I learned, and it's been a difficult one much of the time, and that is that time is either your friend or your enemy, depending upon how you deal with it. When I first found out that I had a sarcoma, and I first found out that I was going to need surgery and that my life might in fact be coming to an end, I had a lot to think about. I had a lot to be fearful about. And my own feeling was, based upon the fact that I have been largely healthy most of my life, with, little periods of time where I had some incidents, but basically healthy, I thought, foolishly, that I would go into the hospital, I would have this surgery that turned out to be 8.5 hours of surgery, and that I would spend 2 weeks getting better and I would get back to my life as I knew it. Well, clearly, life had other plans, and that had zero to do with the reality that I was facing. I'm glad that I didn't know at the start, because I don't know if I could have climbed that hill knowing what I had to face. But now in retrospect, when I look at it and I think of all the angst that I had and all the fear that went along with it, because every day I expected to be better than I was, and it wasn't happening in my time. And I know it happens in God's time, not in our time, but I had no frame of reference for this, and I just couldn't deal with it. And I wondered if I would ever get better, and I think that's something that we often don't know. I mean, we either will or we won't, but we have to live our lives no matter which way it turns out. We have to live the days in between. So I think I realized very recently, it's going to be 6 months on January 13th since my surgery. I would have thought that's a really long time. That was a long time to have to very painfully, slowly sometimes, climb little hills along the way to try to get to the next plateau, to try to get better a tiny little bit at a time. But now that I look back on it, I say, oh my God, if I had only been able to say to myself, to the self that I was coming out of the surgery, coming out of the hospital, coming out of rehab, if I could have said to that person, don't get upset. You will have some wins and some losses along the way. You will feel on some days that you will never get better. You will wonder if you will ever find the old you. Give yourself time. Let time be your friend rather than your enemy. Don't push for a date for when you're going to be better, because it doesn't matter what your date is. The date that the world has planned for you is already there, and just go along with it. Do what you can today, and if you can't do it today, wait for tomorrow. See what happens tomorrow. And that's it. So that's the first. For me, the second one, and this should be no surprise, but one of the things that I learned is that people will surprise the hell out of you, both for the good and the bad. When something difficult happens in your life, you certainly learn really quickly who the people are who will be there for you and who the people are not, that you thought would be there but will not. And it doesn't have to be personal. It can be based upon their own needs and the way they perceive life and what they're going through at this moment in life and how they can deal with whatever it is. I learned that on so many levels with so many people. I remember a thought that I had years ago, feeling that someone I loved very, very much didn't love me. And the truth was, he loved me very much, but he loved me in the way that he could love me. He didn't love me in the way that I needed to be loved. So you know, those are the lessons that we learn. And yes, people will surprise us. And on the other side of the coin, with the ones that we expected nothing from, and they suddenly show up and they are a beacon of light in your life, even if for a moment. What a gift that is. The third thing is that there are gifts, even in the worst of times in your life. There are gifts if you look for them. Hiding out in the corners of that darkest day, there will be something that did shine a light in your direction. You may not have seen it, you may have missed it, but it's there all the time. And I have come across some of the most caring, lovely, wonderful people in my journey just this year. And I'm eternally grateful for every one of them. And I do recognize that saying that, you know, some people come into your life, but they come in for a season. Some people come in for a reason, and some people come in for a lifetime. And that's just the way it is. And if you can just accept them for what it is at this very moment in time, it's good. We can't look to the future that way and try to hold on to people if they're not there, if they're not in that place, and if they need to move on with their own lives for whatever the reason is. The next one is a hard one, and I think it's a hard one for a lot of us, and that is that you have to trust the universe to bring you what you need, not necessarily what you want, and that's the toughie for me. There are times that I wanted so much to happen and to change and to get better and to let me work and to let me do this and to let me do that. But I think that expression that, you can't see the forest for the trees is really valid for much of life, because we see such a finite piece of this grand landscape that is our lives, that we sometimes don't realize that that we're having things happen exactly the way they were to take us to the next place, wherever the next place is that we need to be. And sometimes, and I've said this many times before, and I believe it with all my heart and soul, if we are planted on the wrong road and we do not pick up our own feet to pivot and walk down a different road, sometimes life will do it for us. And that is the story on that one. Number 5 in this, and I think this is really important for me, and it's something that I try to remember all the time, and I really do employ it all the time. Remember to tell the people that you love them. Tomorrow is not guaranteed for any one of us. The last conversation you have with anybody who is meaningful in your life could be your last conversation. Tell them that you love them. Let them know. I do that all the time now, and I know I feel better for it. And I suspect they do too, because we may think that the people that we love know that we love them. Sometimes they don't, or sometimes they just plain need to hear it. So that's number 5 for me. Okay, this is another tough one for a lot of us, and I think that is to handle the things that come up in your life that you can control. Don't dwell on the things that you can't control, because you can't control them. And the more you dwell on them, the less you can control on anything. You can have control of anything. So you need to focus on the things that you can control. Do a little something special for yourself. Do a little something special for somebody else. Say something kind. Give somebody a hug. Make somebody's day by just making a nice comment about something, because you don't know where they are in their day. You don't know where they are in their lives. And it might make a huge difference to them. And it's something so easy for us to do at so little cost to us. I think another one that is astoundingly simple yet complex is that the way that you're feeling today, you may feel as if the way you feel today is the way you feel, and you will always feel that way. That's just the way it is. It reminds me of what somebody had said at one point a long time ago. They said, when you leave the house and you have dogs, and they don't want you to go, and they sit by the door, or they will cry, or they will bark, or they will do whatever it is that they do because they think we're never coming back. It's kind of like that with us on a grander scale, and that is that you just, the way you're feeling, whether it's good or bad, is not necessarily how tomorrow would be. There have been days in my last 6 months when it's been so bad, and I just assumed the next day would be just as bad, and the day after that, and the day after that, and I would bemoan my fate a little bit. And I realized that every day is its own entity. Every day is its own time. And if we look at it as a blank slate, and just embrace it as a brand new day and see what we can make of it, it may take us to a much better place than we anticipate, and a much better place than we've been in anytime recently. Number 8 on my list is allow only a very small bit of time for your personal pity party when you're just feeling sorry for yourself. And you are allowed. Things happen, and you just feel terrible sometimes. It's okay, but only allow yourself a short time for that pity party. And then, in the words of Cher's character in the movie Moonstruck, snap out of it. It will do you no good to wallow in that feeling, and it will pull you farther and farther and farther down into the abyss. You don't need it. You don't need it. So just give yourself permission to pull yourself out of it. Do whatever you have to. Put on some music that makes you feel better. Read a book. Go on to YouTube, or go watch TV. Go on to Netflix. Find something that just will pull you out of yourself. For me, sometimes I get my biggest laughs out of reading the comments in the review section of products on websites. I could die laughing sometimes. People are really inherently funny. So again, just do something that's going to take you out of that moment where you feel like, my life is horrible. I don't deserve this. I deserve better than this. Why do I have to suffer this? As I say, it's okay. You're allowed to do it for a while, but do not wallow in it. Number 9 is reach out into the world, whether your world here on Facebook, in any of the social medias, your world locally, just reach out. You might just be able to make somebody else's day. Just a remark, a smile, a kiss on the cheek, a kind word can make a huge difference in somebody's life. And it's something that's so easy to do. And a byproduct of that is you feel so much better. So I would say that that was one of my lessons for this time around. The last one is embrace who you are at this moment in time, with all your frailties, with all your uncertainties. with all your losses and all the changes in your life. They all have gone into making you the perfectly imperfect person that you are. And isn't that wonderful? Love yourself for the person you are today. It's all good, every bit of it. And as we prepare to start a new year, let's start it the best way we can for each of us. And again, you know, I'm not serving up platitudes here. I am not suggesting that it's a Pollyanna world. Lord knows mine hasn't been anything but for the past year, certainly for longer than that, if I really allow myself to look at the road that I was headed on, that I chose to not look at and to bury my head in the sand. It's all good in the end. We are here, and we are, this is the schoolroom. We need to learn lessons, and we can either learn them and move on, or we cannot learn them and repeat them over and over again. I prefer to move on. How about you? Take care, everybody. Enjoy the last couple of days of 2018. And I wish every one of you a happy, healthy, blessed, and prosperous new year. Take care, my friends. I love you all.